Well, Clarence, I want to thank you first off for taking the time to chat with me. I know we're really looking forward to this weekend's broadcast, both the Winnipeg Jets and Manitoba Moose. So first off, I guess I wanted to start with you. I mean, this is a very intriguing position that you have worked yourself into and an important one. And so I just wanted to ask you, Clarence, about what led you to calling the games in Cree?
Well, it's a long story, and I don't even know myself, but I'll let you know. When I was younger, I was at the residential school. I was one of the survivors. You've probably heard of the residential schools in across Canada. So I was in there for 7 years, and yeah, when I was younger, I pretty much knew every player in that residential school. They used to call it the house league. So, back then there was no technology or anything like that. So we had an outdoor rink. There was no indoor at all. So I'd stand right by the penalty box. And I used to listen to Foster Hewitt back in the day, Danny Gallivan, Bob Cole, and I liked the way they called that hockey. So I thought I'd try it and at my younger days, and I started calling a little play-by-play, imitating some of those former announcers in the NHL. So that's how I started in a residential school, and then an opportunity came, but much later in years. I was in my 30s or so. I had a job with NBC Radio out of La Ronge, and one day. They just wanted us to cover an Aboriginal. They call it Aboriginal. It's an Indigenous hockey tournament in Prince Albert in Saskatchewan. So they called us there just to give updates. So we did it in Cree and Dene. So when they gave me the mic, I thought I'll call a little bit of play by play. But this was not in my language. It was in English. So I started calling in English, and my boss was really surprised. Nab Gardner, he was just looking at me. He said, "Well, this guy's pretty good." And yeah, that's how it started, and it was on live on our radio, and it's a pretty big, it's a pretty big radio station. Like pretty much every community in Saskatchewan here, they could hear us giving reports, and they heard me calling play by play. And little did I know the people liked it. And when we got back to La Ronge, after the weekend was over, I guess my boss he got a call, and they wanted us to start calling play by play hockey. So yeah, so that's how it started, and pretty soon NBC got hired to do games. I did games as far as Prince George, but the Cree part. Now this was done in English, so I thought I'll do a little bit of Cree. So I did a little bit of Cree here and there during the tournaments, maybe a minute or so. I'll call a game in Cree, and then all of a sudden people like that as well. I got hired to do other professional sports as well. One day I got called in Regina. There was a winter games held in the city of Regina. So I got called there to do a professional boxing bout. And I also called boxing in Cree. And then I did some North American Indigenous games. I went to St. Paul, Minnesota in the early 90s. Minnesota, they had the games there, and also here in Prince Albert. So yeah, I was pretty much getting involved now, calling games as well, and a little bit of professional hockey. I did call a Junior A hockey game, and that's the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League here, the North Battleford North Stars, and the La Ronge Ice Wolves. So that's how I started for my career.
Well, when you were doing those games at the tournament in Prince Albert, could you have ever imagined that down the line you'd be calling NHL games?
Not at all. But I had a dream. That one day that I'd be, I wanted to call. I wanted to call so bad in the NHL. And I thought, I could do it. But then I started getting a little too old, up in age, I should say, if I was given an opportunity back then when I was younger, I think I could have done a good job in the NHL, but the opportunity never did arose. So this was the time that the opportunity came. And I had retired from broadcasting for a number of years, maybe 12 years or so. But one day my partner needed help, a person that I worked with at one time in La Ronge with NBC. They have their own local radio station, Pinehouse Lake, Saskatchewan, and that's where I'm at right now. I was supposed to help him for 1 month. He was in need. So I came here. Now this is my 7th year here in Pine House. So yeah, I came out of retirement, I guess, and then one day I guess it was advertised by APTN that Sportsnet would carry this NHL hockey game, and it was called Rogers Hometown Hockey. So they wanted to call. They wanted somebody to call play-by-play hockey in Cree. And it never did cross my mind at the time, but I did get some calls here by my friends, and they were telling me because my nickname is Tiboy. So they said, Tiboy, did you hear about that job opening? You should apply for it. You'll get it. And I wasn't really interested at first. I thought, I'm not really the type of guy to really apply for something. But when APTN themselves, when they called after they must have heard about me, and they personally called me, and they said we're looking for a Cree announcer, and I heard you used to call hockey, play-by-play hockey in English and in Cree, and I said yes, I did. And are you interested and stuff like that? And but people had to apply for this job. So now they wanted me to send some demos of my hockey calling. So I did I had a few little promos that I had kept. So I did send them some. I sent a few to Winnipeg, and they heard my calling play-by-play, and they were interested right away.
I guess I want to ask you, the opportunity to call the games in Cree. What importance is that to you to be able to call it in your language and present that to folks who previously weren't really getting that option?
Regarding the languages here, I had to take a real good look at some of the people that I grew up with, and even right now they are First Nations, but they cannot speak the language at all. They have lost it. Some can understand. Some indigenous people can understand the language, but they cannot speak it. So now, given this opportunity, when they told me to call Cree and the languages, that was it started to it dawned on me that this is very important, this language. But before, it was a natural thing to me, but now I take a good look at it. And when they did the 92 or 94 recommendations regarding residential schools, and I thought, boy, this is something here. And then I started, the pride, I was so proud that I never did lose my language, that I kept it during the 7 years in a residential school. And I used to talk to myself, even if there was nobody there that spoke Cree. I talked to myself in Cree. That's how I kept my Cree alive. So languages today, I see a very important